I would love to restore an old muscle car. I could probably justify the garage space, have some disposable income, and borrow specialty tools from family. I believe I could get quite a bit of help from online resources, but I'm not particularly handy and I'm afraid of creating a stressful money pit and admitting failure. What about you? Story 1. Some kind of physical sport. I am mostly interested in tennis. I have never had the best cardiovascular fitness or hand-eye coordination, so it is quite daunting to consider getting started, especially now in my 30s. Story 2. I grew up riding horses, but the world steered me into a job with a formal dress code, so horses didn't accompany me. Now I am older and retired, living downtown. If I had the chance to do it over, I would have stayed in the countryside with my horses, but it's fine. Story 3. This may sound corny, but I want to learn how to sing. I do karaoke sometimes, but that's usually after I've had some drinks. I know I sound pretty bad, and I can't keep a tune during one-on-one sessions with someone who is trying to judge my abilities. Story 4. Aviation, pilot license, helicopter license. I will do it one day, though. I currently do not have the time to get started, and it is not a hobby I want to pursue without giving it my full attention. Story 5. Hunting, butchering, and practicing marksmanship are skills that would come in handy if civilization ever falls. It's difficult to afford guns and ammunition on an educator's salary. Story 6. I want to self-build a modular home on land I own. In the UK, prices are extremely high and the bureaucratic processes are extensive, often costing more than a house. The thought of having an isolated log cabin that is small but includes all necessary comforts and services is absolutely enticing. Story 7. Going racing on closed courses. I do not street race. I build my weekend or project car the way I want. I do not have the funds to do more than maintain it and drive it, which I really enjoy and always have a great time doing. Story 8. Travel in a loop. Japan for 2 months. New Zealand for 1 month. United States for 9 months. Story 9. I would love to learn guitar and create my own songs. Ideally, I would learn guitar, bass, drums, and vocals to compose music entirely on my own. However, it can be expensive and time-consuming to reach that goal. Story 10. I have always wanted to restore old motorcycles. However, I currently do not have a garage, and my last bike was stolen. So, I will wait until I can afford a place with more space. Story 11. Blacksmithing. I have the finances to start, but not the location to set up everything needed. Maybe in a few years, when I move, I can find a place with a suitable spot for my setup. Story 12. Sail on a pirate ship, visiting island after island, touring and dismantling the old colonial ships. Story 13. Restoring is a learning process. Having done a few, it looks much more intimidating than it is. Search for each step individually on YouTube, and I promise you, after you watch it done, you will realize that most of it is just taking things apart carefully and cleaning them. You can do that. It's like building with Legos. The first time you rebuild an engine, a lot of it really is just being careful, clean, and patient. My current project is a 1986 K5, nicknamed Pablo Escobar. It's a lengthy process, but I swear, every time you learn something, like how to wire a stereo, get the timing right, or prepare and repaint a door, you will feel so proud of yourself for accomplishing it. Years back, I rebuilt my old black Chevrolet's top end with it still in the frame. The job would have cost $3,000 just to replace some lifters and the gaskets and seals, and to do a double valve job at a Chevrolet dealership. I was worried I didn't have enough experience with internal components, but honestly, YouTube helped me. I jumped in and spent 48 hours, which included 2 weeks of machine shop time for valve jobs, all on my own. The first time I got it to start after the rebuild, the joy was overwhelming. I thought, I did that. I fixed it. Well, that was hard, but I am more capable than I thought. It cost $1,300, some beer and music. That was a lot of life. For my current work truck, I did the injector job on the Duramax. I didn't know what I was doing, but I watched and learned. I stayed patient, and my Duramax started up and ran perfectly afterward. I felt so proud. Restoring a vehicle isn't all fun, but I promise you, It's worth feeling it come to life. And the day it rolls out of your garage, you'll be looking at it, knowing it's you who did something you thought was impossible. It's worth it. You do have to set goals and have a clear plan to follow. My K5 is snow white with a blacked out front end, grille, push bar, and a bottom black stripe on the rockers. She looks better every day. Stay on it just like a gym workout. Love the process. It's all learning and don't rush. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Story 14. Some form of auto racing is appealing, preferably dirt track, but I would also love to race on an asphalt oval. I have the funds to buy a race-ready lower-class car, but I cannot afford to replace it if it gets damaged. Story 15. Hockey has always been a passion of mine since childhood, but my family couldn't afford lessons. I only learned to skate well enough to use ice skating as my go-to-second date activity in college. Now that I am out of college and well employed, I am unsure where to start as a guy in my mid-20s living in the Midwest. Story 16. Be one of those people who get paid to live in the woods for a week or look for evidence of Bigfoot. Story 17. I often fantasize about a piece of land where I can build my own cabin. I would like to do most of the work myself or with my son when he is older. Then, I would like to disappear there and only let a few special people know where I am. Story 18. I started leatherworking and thought it would be fun to make bandage gear. I made a pair of cuffs that I enjoyed, but I don't really do that anymore, so I started running. Story 19. I would love to try skydiving. However, my life insurance policy specifically forbids it, and I understand that this is generally the rule. I have children, so I suppose I am hesitant to try it until retirement. Story 20. Obtaining my private pilot license. Story 21. Making mead looks nice, and having people try my mead would be cool. However, I have no time to branch out and do other things. Additionally, where I live gets hot, so I would need to spend money on a place to store the mead. Story 22. I want a stand-up arcade with pinball machines and a mix of side-scrollers, shooters, and racing games. I also want to get more into golf. Story 23. Drawing. I have a really harsh internal critic. I've completed a few sketches, but it's difficult to maintain motivation. Story 24. Any type of public-facing art, such as writing, acting, stand-up, or painting, intimidates me greatly. I have always had a fear of public speaking and judgment, except when I was a very young child. Another of my interests is woodworking. I enjoy working with my hands, but I am getting older, and friends in the trades have warned me about the potential toll it can take on my body. They are now considering leaving their jobs or going back to school for promotions, while I find myself overqualified yet struggling to find work. I am even contemplating joining their ranks as a late career apprentice. Story 25. Sailing. I want a 1 or 2 person 420 or something similar. I would like to go out whenever I want without worrying about gas costs. Story 26. I used to participate in triathlons. I had a crash right before my first half Ironman. Since then, I have struggled to get back into a consistent cycling routine each week. It frustrates me greatly. Story 27. I make mead and am getting deep enough and good enough to sell it commercially. Someone I know just opened a meadery, and it sounds like a dream. Story 28. Mine would be cosplay, I guess. However, good cosplay requires both financial investment and skill, which can only be developed with sufficient resources. Story 29. Not exactly a dream hobby, but I would like to buy, assemble, and paint miniatures from Warhammer 40,000. However, I live in India, so there is no access and it is also financially too expensive. Story 30. I love woodworking and I'm fairly good at it, but I've never been able to figure out the logistics of having space for a shop in my home. Story 31. Voice acting. I love putting on voices and people say I am really good at it. However, I have no idea where to start. Story 32. I don't typically engage with muscle cars, but I've recently developed an interest in Datsun Z models. However, the prices for project cars are getting quite high. The last one I purchased cost me $22,000 for a decent original. Go for it. Old cars are straightforward to work on. They're entirely mechanical. There are no computers to manage unless you install a new engine. I'm currently working on my Datsun Z project, using a BMW V10 engine. Even in that case, there are kits available for nearly everything. With a maintenance manual, some tools, and a bit of guidance from online videos, you'll be well on your way. Story 33. I've always wanted to try quick shooting Wild West style revolver shooting. I don't know how to go about learning it. Story 34. Aquarium keeping can be challenging, especially when moving every year, as it can be difficult to manage aquatic life during the relocations. Story 35. As a car enthusiast, YouTube is a fantastic resource these days for doing just about anything to a car. Aside from money, there is really no reason why anyone can't get into it, even if it's for basic restoration or maintenance. Personally, I have always wanted to participate in drag racing seriously and compete, but financially, this just isn't feasible for me. Story 36. I have two dream cars that I want to build. Both are third-generation Subaru Imprezas. I don't have over $40,000 to spend on quality aftermarket drivetrain and suspension parts for each car, let alone two whole cars. Story 37. Guns. Unfortunately, I live in Europe, which is not very gun-friendly. This is why I am aiming for a job that allows me to travel internationally, such as to North America, to explore gun culture. I also plan on obtaining a small firearm license in a few years. In addition, over the past few months, I have developed an interest in cars, similar to what you want to pursue. It's a great hobby, and contrary to what many people believe, choosing a budget-friendly vehicle does not necessarily lead to a money pit. You can actually make money by buying parts and putting in the effort to work on them. A year ago, I viewed cars merely as a mode of transportation, but I recently purchased a second car to restore and perform some repairs on it. Story 38. I have always wanted to get into the motorsports scene, either drifting in grassroots events or participating in time attack competitions. Story 39. Freestyle BMX. My dad used to be a freestyler in his younger days. I'm just a bit scared to be a 27-year-old barely learning how to bunny hop. Story 40. I'm considering becoming a small plane pilot, blacksmith, photographer, or drone pilot. I have some camera equipment, but not enough to be professional. I own a few drones, but I often lack a place to practice because of the new regulations. I tried blacksmithing once at a Boy Scout camp and really enjoyed it. I have never flown a small plane, but during college, while pursuing my cartography degree, we needed to take aerial photos for one of our projects. We flew in small Piper Cub planes with some amazing Swedish pilots who would do pretty much whatever we asked, flying straight down, sideways, and performing other thrilling maneuvers. I would love to be able to do that. Story 41. You don't need a lot of tools for that. Except for welding, 90% can be done with a $10 ratchet set and a flathead screwdriver. If you don't have the funds to buy an old muscle car, I might suggest the mighty fine Beetle. Story 42. I had a flying lesson for my birthday a few years ago and loved it. I would love to have the means to obtain my pilot's license. Story 43. I want to become a ranch owner, but I am afraid of almost all animals. It's a sad world. However, I dream of owning land and having animals on it one day, simply because my dad asked if I ever got rich, that we could do that together. Story 44. I grew up with a horse from the Bureau of Land Management program. If I were very wealthy, I would have opened a stable and ridden them, but I would not have raced myself. I am too large to be a jockey. If I were extremely rich, I would want to take my racehorses around the country and spend time at the derbies with my affluent friends. I would also visit other countries and have stables abroad, enjoying the company of my wealthy European and Arab friends. Story 45. Archery equipment is very expensive. I also don't have the space for it. The best I can do is go to an archery range and shoot arrows for about 30 minutes. Story 46. Hobby horsing may cause embarrassment, but honestly, it looks like great fun and exercise. Plus, I can't afford a horse. Oops. I didn't realize this was Ask Men. Oh well. Story 47. Jewelry, belt buckles, and eyeglass wax carving and casting. Anything really. I want to melt metal. I would even try zinc countertop sand casting. Story 48. I would love to take up flying, either a bush plane or a helicopter. I'm not sure if I have the correct mindset to do it safely. It is also very expensive. However, I know a man who spent 14 years building a kit plane in his garage and now flies it. Story 49. Race car driver. I have always dreamed of it. Not a day goes by that I don't think about fast cars, but we were short on money while growing up at the most important moment to start. In my early 20s, I got the opportunity and helped to purchase a house, which is probably the best financial decision I will ever make. However, it took all my savings, and I am still rebuilding my finances. I am too late to start a professional career and still not making enough, but I am very good in my simulator. Story 50. I would love to start downhill mountain biking. The reason I haven't started is the lack of elevation in my area. I could buy a bike and look for some local trails, but they are all flat with only a few jumps and tables. I also want to engage in more hiking and camping. I would need to travel over 250 miles to reach areas that are at least somewhat interesting. Story 51. Being an automotive journalist, I have plenty of opinions on modern cars but don't know where to start. Story 52. Muay Thai and survival skills. A guitar string broke last spring, and I have put off buying new ones because I felt bad about how slow my chord changes were. The broken string has become a convenient excuse for not improving. Story 53. I would love to learn sword fighting or jousting. It seems enjoyable. Unfortunately, both are expensive and time-consuming to learn. Story 54. Drawing or creating art makes me feel as though I have numerous ideas. However, I struggle to bring them to life due to a lack of skill and confidence. Story 55. Glassblowing seems interesting. However, I would need to own property, build an outbuilding, and acquire various specialized tools. Story 56. Having a horse and the ability to ride it, a pilot license, experience in paragliding, good shooting skills, tactical combat skills with weapons, and camping experience. Story 57. Skydiving. The main thing holding me back from starting is that while I could technically begin, I am a bit too close to the weight limit for accelerated freefall courses for my own comfort. Additionally, it is likely $10,000 to $15,000 in startup costs between training and gear. I would also love to take up flying or sailing, but those are well beyond what I am comfortable spending on hobbies. Story 58. I grew up in a family that had no involvement with sports, so I also had no exposure to them. Now, at nearly 30, I still don't know how to throw, kick, swing, or participate in any sports-related activities. I feel like it's too late to learn those skills. In addition to sports, I want to learn how to skate, make rugs, practice jujitsu, play the cello, and create pottery. Story 59. Blacksmithing involves forging items. I have seen videos of people melting old soda cans in an electric furnace and creating interesting objects using sand molds. Additionally, using a lathe to shape wood allows for the creation of beautiful bowls and similar items. Playing the drums is also an option. However, I lack the time, money, or space to pursue any of these activities. Story 60. Pottery. I have never done it, but I have always loved the texture of clay and wet mud. It seems like such a tactile and satisfying thing to do. However, I am not financially stable and live in a modest apartment in a small town with no significant pottery community where I can create my own pieces and use a kiln. Yet I dream. Story 61. I'm with you. I have been a professional mechanic for most of my life. I have restored several Mustangs and am currently working on a Duster. I would love to turn it into a business, but I struggle with paperwork and bookkeeping. I have the knowledge and tools, but lack the desk work experience to run a business. Car restoration is so much fun, and I find it extremely rewarding. Story 62. This may sound a bit cringe, but singing, the compliment I receive the most, when it's not about my looks, is my voice. People say it's sensual, and the funniest comment was, "You could work for a sex telephone hotline or talk about paint drying, and I would listen." So yes, I would really like to sing, but I don't know. Story 63. I would prefer to get back into stained glass as a paying hobby. For me, it is a matter of not having the means to do so. Story 64. Music production setup. I can sing well, but I am not able to create music or learn to play an instrument. Story 65. Motorcycling and having an old Italian convertible or coupe as a summer hobby car sound appealing. However, garages are quite expensive, so perhaps in another life. Story 66. Blacksmithing. I was able to trace my lineage back far enough to find that I am a descendant of royal blacksmiths. I have always wanted to pursue this craft, but it is challenging without a home and a forge. Story 67. I would love to learn how to work on, fix, and maintain cars in the same way I understand Pokemon and game system design. I would dedicate all my time to it if I had a second chance. Story 68. I am a club racer, both for cars and motorcycles, and I hope to see changes once I earn my degree. Game development and robotics intimidate me, but I am actively working on those areas, hoping that as I progress through my degree, they will no longer be intimidating. I am counting on this degree to enable me to pursue the hobbies I want. Story 69. Fencing, singing, and playing a flute that was given to me. It was given to a teacher of mine by Ip Man. He gifted it to my friend and teacher as a breathing exercise. I received it for the same reason. I used to practice with it and was able to intuitively create tunes. Story 70. Cycling, both road and mountain, started in earnest in 2006 when I was losing weight and signed up for a London to Paris cycle challenge for charity. I felt intimidated being one of the few riding a cheap mountain bike with road wheels while others had road bikes and proper hybrids. Even now, I enjoy mountain biking, but I still feel that I am never fit enough, confident enough, or skillful enough compared to others, which often holds me back. This discouragement affects how often I exercise, so I don't go as often as I would like to avoid embarrassing myself. Story 71. I can tell you from experience that if you pick the right car, which should not be something European or rare that makes it hard to find parts and information for, it's completely achievable as long as you have the time and the money. The reason mine is now in the shop is that it was one of about 5 side projects. I just didn't have the time to properly do every single thing myself. I completed a lot of really cool things and it was fun, but in the end, I had to let it go for bigger projects I cared more about. However, if you are dedicated and have a solid budget of $10,000 to $20,000 to invest in it, it's totally achievable. Story 72. Just get the car. You only live once, and you can learn a lot from manuals and online resources, and do plenty yourself. Buy the few specialty tools you'll need, you will use them again. Get an easy, reliable, older car. Story 73. I would love to build a small sailboat one day, just a little dinghy. However, the level of woodworking, tooling, space, and time requirements is beyond my capabilities at the moment. Story 74. Restoring an old muscle car sounds like an amazing hobby, and it's understandable to feel intimidated by the potential challenges and costs. For me, a dream hobby that I'd love to pursue but find intimidating is learning to play the piano and composing music. Why it's intimidating for me? 1. Time commitment. Learning to play the piano and composing music both require a significant time investment, and my current schedule doesn't easily allow for consistent practice. Skill level. I'm a complete beginner when it comes to music theory and playing any instrument, which makes the learning curve seem very steep. Cost. Quality pianos can be expensive, and I also need to budget for lessons and potentially software for composing. Fear of failure. The idea of not being able to master it or struggling to make progress can be daunting, and I'm afraid of the frustration that might come with it. Steps to overcome the intimidation. 1. Start small. Begin with a digital keyboard to get a feel for playing without a significant financial commitment. Online resources. Utilize free or affordable online tutorials and applications designed for beginners to learn at my own pace. Set realistic goals. Break down the learning process into manageable steps and set achievable goals to build confidence. Enjoy the journey. Focus on the joy of learning and playing music rather than the end goal of becoming an expert. Everyone has hobbies they dream of but find intimidating for various reasons. The key is to take small, manageable steps toward your goal and to remember that it's okay to make mistakes and learn from them along the way. Whether it's restoring a car, playing the piano, or any other hobby, the journey and the experiences gained can be just as rewarding as the end result. Story 75. Taxidermy and processing of deceased animals. I believe it would be interesting to have a business that creates memorials for pets and animals in general using non-traditional methods. Story 76. Sailing is a passion of mine. I love being on the water and have been sailing with a motorized boat since before I could walk. However, I have never sailed on an actual sailing boat. I would love to sail around the world on a two-master vessel, equipped with solar power and water purification systems. Unfortunately, my partner gets extremely seasick, so it is unlikely to become a reality. Story 77. I want to try leatherworking. I already know a few things that I would like to make. The tools, leather, and dye would cost me about $300. Story 78. I dream of getting back into sports by joining my local cricket team. Unfortunately, a combination of being unable to afford membership fees and feeling too anxious to approach the team means it will be a while before I can participate in sports again. Story 79. I have always wanted to spend every weekend attending games and traveling in Europe, but I do not earn enough to do that frequently. Story 80. Kayaking, carpentry, and car restoration are my interests. I also want to practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I can't afford it right now. I hope to start soon. Story 81. I want to learn how to crochet or knit. However, I have a clingy cat who loves string, and my previous attempts have not gone well. Additionally, I am not very artistic or skilled in symmetry. Story 82. Astrophotography. I have always been a huge space enthusiast and enjoyed any type of astronomy. I consider myself an amateur photographer, but astrophotography is one of those things I want to try one day. However, all the gear and equipment, especially the telescopes, intimidate me. Luckily, there is a subcategory called landscape astrophotography that is more accessible and less complex. I will try it eventually in the future. Seeing all the beautiful pictures people have taken in astrophotography communities makes me love space even more. Story 83. Dental assisting. I could never find the right program or school. I finally found one and hopefully will start soon. I am ready to get out of this rut I'm in. Story 84. I would like to continuously go to school and learn about history. I enjoy diving into different periods and cultures to understand the world better. My favorite video games are Assassin's Creed because I love experiencing these fascinating time periods. There's so much to learn. Story 85. Cabinet making for garages and rebuilding engines interest me. For some reason, I cannot cut a straight line. As for engines, all I know is that they need air, fuel, and a spark to run. However, I watch many videos on both topics, and I am going to try my hand at both. Story 86. Rolling through the comments, there are many on my list, but I think I have to go with the classic Australian car. I am considering a full running gear upgrade and either opting for powerful LSA V8 noise or a high-performance electric option. Either way, it's a costly dream. The worst part is that I have the skills to do it. I am just not good at finishing projects and managing my spending. Story 87. As your first project car, don't pick something that is completely obscure. I got my first project, a 1993 Honda Del Sol, last fall, and it has completely changed my life. New aftermarket parts are very affordable. You can spend as much as you want on performance parts, but I'm not there yet. I just want to drive it and ensure it runs smoothly, as I have no prior car experience. I obtained the factory service manuals so I don't have to search for torque specifications. Going into the garage, turning on the radio, and lighting incense with the garage door open is one of my favorite activities. Story 88. Motorcycling. I have gone shooting, restored old cars, and played really dangerous sports before. Riding a motorcycle is still the one thing that scares me enough that I have not started yet. But there are some cool bikes that I would like to try. Story 89. I have many hobbies, but my biggest challenge was running my own martial arts class. I did it for 7 years and learned a lot of new skills, including payment processing, social media marketing, and printing t-shirts. I handled everything myself and discovered great tools that made things easier. It's worth trying something to see if it works. I decided to let go of my hobby to focus more on my kids, and I left it on my own terms, which I'm glad about. My lesson is to go ahead and try something, but don't feel bad if you have to let it go someday. Right now, my new focus is simply being present with my kids. Story 90. A hobby? I would like to learn how to fly a plane. However, I do not have the time to learn at my age. Perhaps when I retire, if I do not have dementia by then. Story 91. I want to work with virtual reality and motion capture. I believe the cost of the equipment reflects that it is more of a dream hobby. Story 92. Not as a hobby, but I would love to have an animal sanctuary for all the dogs in my area that haven't been adopted. Preferably, I would focus on the oldest dogs that need a place to relax and be cared for. Story 93. Watchmaking involves assembling watches from various components, but disassembling the movement into numerous smaller parts and identifying issues can be overwhelming. It is essential to understand different types of movements and recognize the function of each tiny gear. To pursue this hobby, it is advisable to attend a school or enroll in an online course that allows for ample practice and learning through trial and error. Story 94. Dress in long dresses and decorate my house like in the countryside. Bake to grow my vegetables. Also, stick to one sport. Story 95. Blacksmithing. I have had the pleasure on a few occasions, but I do not have the time, money, or space for my own setup at home. Story 96. Game development is something I want to pursue and dream of creating a game, but it feels overwhelming. I have watched videos and read various materials. Unfortunately, the videos are often boring, making it difficult to maintain focus. When I attempt to read articles on platforms like Reddit, I find that many tutorials on YouTube are considered ineffective, with some creators more interested in selling courses. Overall, it has been quite confusing. Story 97. I have a bakery at home. I enjoy oil painting. I am working on solving a cold case. I plan to write a book. I love wine tasting. I collect Christmas ornaments and decorate a mini Christmas village that takes over half the living room every year. I also enjoy attending medieval festivals. I am a grandmother living in the body of a 23-year-old woman. Story 98. Ever since I watched Forged in Fire, I've wanted to try knife making. However, I realized how loud it can be, and I live in a neighborhood where that kind of noise is not tolerated. Story 99. Committing to guitar, I gave up after a couple of years of solid daily practice, and now I've lost nearly all my dexterity. I have always regretted it. I might also curate YouTube videos on obscure parts of history as a personal hobby, such as one about an elephant gifted to King Henry III of England by Louis IX of France. The elephant did not have a known name but allegedly relaxed in the Tower of London until passing away from natural causes. It was the first elephant to set foot in England since the Roman invasion of 43 AD. Story 100. Own a library and read. Hire someone to give me lectures on any topic I feel like that day. Swim the Great Barrier Reef. Story 101. I have started drawing again to create a graphic novel. I have also begun a beginner course in information technology skills. Going on hikes has become too expensive. As for martial arts, particularly Muay Thai, I am not motivated to travel 40 minutes to the dojo. Story 102. You need to do that. I am restoring a 1975 Chevrolet Silverado. I am taking my time to do it right. It will be new when I am done. The great thing is there is a video for every situation, or you can ask on an online forum. You can easily buy new or used parts. I love it, and my wife loves that I have a hobby. Story 103. I would really like to be a fitness influencer. I enjoy lifting weights and pushing myself not only to look better but to feel better as well. Additionally, I would love to help others get started and stay motivated. Story 104. Metalsmithing requires significant investment, so I'm unsure if I want to commit to that right now. Since I'm on a health and fitness journey, I would love to learn something like boxing, Muay Thai, or wrestling. However, I feel too scared and intimidated to start. Story 105. Sean Locke once said that his hobby is drinking, along with the socializing elements. I am not much of a drinker, mainly because it seems outrageously expensive to go out for an evening, let alone make it a regular activity. It seems silly and basic as well as costly. Story 106. Overlanding. I have a 2016 4Runner I would love to modify. This idea may not be as far-fetched as I previously thought. Story 107. I really want to build a teardrop trailer from scratch. I think it would be a fun project. I'm not sure why since we dislike camping. Story 108. Trekking involves camping and all that, but I don't know how to camp. I would also like to learn to fly. I suppose I need to save money for a course. Story 109. For me, it would be acting. I love stories. I enjoy entertaining others and telling them things with a serious expression while observing their reactions. All day, I am out and about pretending to be better than I actually am. I would love to act in a movie or a television show, but I often feel that I do not have the right appearance and I struggle with my weight. Story 110. For me, it would be acting. I love stories. I enjoy entertaining others and conveying messages with a serious expression while observing their reactions. All day, I am out and about pretending to be better than I truly am. I would love to act in a movie or a television show, but I feel that I may not have the right appearance and I am overweight. Story 111. M1 Medieval is essentially mixed martial arts with medieval knights. Armor is expensive, and it is not available near my country. Even for regular night tournaments or battle reenactments, I would have to travel quite a distance. Story 112. Sailing on ships is a regret for me, as I wish I had pursued it more professionally rather than as a hobby. I regret not attending a naval academy when I was 18 or 19 years old. Story 113. I would like to learn stained glass. However, all the glass is expensive and I get frustrated easily, which would likely result in shattering most of it. Story 114. I would like to build a kit car, but I have no idea what is involved. It seems like it would be a fun project, but I could also see it turning into a nightmare. Story 115. I would like to hike the Pacific Crest Trail and several other long-distance hikes. I am not intimidated by the challenge, and it is not terribly expensive. I just do not have a 6-month block of time where I can leave my family. Story 116. I would love to learn how to build electronics, create remote-controlled toys, and work with stepper motors in CNC machinery. A lot of my free time is dedicated to learning CNC machining, but I still haven't found the time or resources to start learning soldering, making components, and understanding how they work. I would like to create remote-controlled cars, drones, and boats, as well as 2- and 3-axis machines with stepper motors, such as plasma tables or routers. Story 117. Aquaculture and enclosed biomes. I have experimented with aquaponics and achieved good results, but only on a small scale. I would love to expand this to full-scale biomes with aquaculture as the centerpiece. Story 118. I have been writing stories all my life, but I have always wanted to learn how to draw so I could create illustrations for my stories, as they play out like vivid movies in my head. However, I lack the patience for being inexperienced, so I cannot gain the drawing experience I need to improve my skills. Story 119. Photography has been a challenge for me when it comes to deciding what to capture. My mind tends to wander, leaving me unsatisfied with the results. Taking photos for others does not bring me joy either. However, I truly enjoy operating cameras. Experimenting with buttons, settings, and various lenses feels very relaxing to me. Story 120. Mine is pretty close to the original posters. I would like to take old classic collectible cars and convert them into nice electric vehicles. I have a plan to turn an MR2 into an electric vehicle faster than a Tesla, but I currently lack the time and money. Story 121. Ice skating, pool and billiards, darts, bowling, radio, Halloween prop making. Story 122. Solo oceanic sailing requires careful consideration. You cannot simply cross the Atlantic in a 20-foot dinghy. I expect a 50-foot vessel to be the minimum size. Story 123. I have always wanted to fly aircraft, specifically single-engine Cessnas. I was learning from a friend, but he sadly passed away. I thought that perhaps someone didn't want me to fly. However, I believe that if he were still around, I would have been encouraged to take courses and obtain a license. I remain passionate about aviation and am fascinated by flying. In my spare time, I create airfoils and fly remote-controlled planes. Story 124. I would love to learn how to reload ammunition, sing, improve my woodworking and automotive skills, and have a hobby that generates a significant income. Story 125. Writing and producing songs. I feel that I have an innate ability to express myself and feel things that many men cannot or do not willingly express. However, I struggle to take it seriously because I worry it might be a waste of time and that people will judge me. But then I think, why do I care what people think? They are not making me money or paying my bills, and that is also a waste of time. Story 126. I have done some blacksmithing before with friends in high school, but it is not currently possible for me since I am living with family and lack the space or funds to buy materials and equipment. However, I am looking into welding schools and apprenticeships. Welding is in the same vein as blacksmithing and should pay well in the long run. Hopefully, when I am earning enough money, I can find a small shop and get started. Story 127. Astrophotography. I would love to travel and camp in dark, remote locations to capture photos of the cosmos. Story 128. And no risk, no gain, said a wise person. However, I also have a hobby that can never be fulfilled, which is skating. Story 129. My dream hobby would be trying new things. I never really feel the need to continue with activities, but I want to explore everything. Some activities I'd like to do twice, others maybe just once. Every post that I read here intrigued me. One person mentioned biomes, others mentioned kit cars and bike racing, and some talked about art, drawing, and building machines. I would love to try all of it. I wish it were more common to ride along with people and have them show you how to do things. I'd love to spend a day with a chef or tag along with a microbiologist while they work, even if much of it involves paperwork. What's it like to build a house? How are whiteboards made? Who raises and trains truffle pigs? And can I assist? How can I enter that absolutely quiet room to see if I can stand it? What is mucking a stall? And can someone teach me? I'd love to help someone make a carpet. It doesn't have to be glamorous or fun. I'm just curious about what different activities are like. I have a few hobbies that I enjoy. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a bit limited to craft stores because people doing truly interesting work often don't want someone clumsily asking questions all day. I respect that, and it's totally understandable. It doesn't change the fact that I want to try everything. Story 130. I would love to make pool cues. I have experience operating a metal lathe. I enjoy playing pool. It's the best of both worlds. Story 131. Drama and acting have always appealed to me. I believe I would be good at it, but I have never pursued it. As for badminton, there are no leagues in my area, but I loved the sport when I was younger. Story 132. I have always wanted to play the guitar. I have tried a few times, but my fingers never develop calluses, and it always hurts. Story 133. Learning to fly a plane or helicopter can be an exhilarating experience. I have read many books about individuals who love being in the air and among the clouds. Story 134. Learning how to surf. But knowing my luck, I would end up being the one person the shark decides to befriend. Story 135. Painting miniatures. I currently do not have the money or space to get into it. Additionally, I work an average of 70 hours each week, so time is also an issue. Story 136. Muay Thai. I really want to practice martial arts so I can have the ability to hold my own and defend my future partner. But I am 20 and I might be too old to start. I am unsure how to begin, how much it will cost, and how long it will take. Story 137. Rebuild a steam locomotive and drive it. The nearest vintage railroad is an hour away, which is too far. I am considering moving closer. Story 138. Traveling and photography. I would love to visit other countries and see historic sites, abandoned areas, and haunted places, capturing the essence of each location. Activities like geocaching and zip lining, along with backpacking, are also on my list. Story 139. Mixed martial arts. I think I would be a good fighter. I'm already fairly decent at wrestling due to growing up with an older brother. With some training, I could excel. However, I wear glasses and have multiple facial piercings, which do not mix well with fighting. Story 140, Falconry. Apparently, I need a biology degree to pursue it professionally, and I don't think I have the resources to create my own setup. Story 141. I'll say that as long as the project car isn't your main vehicle and you ensure that the income is disposable, there is no pressure to complete it unless you commit to something similar. Personally, I enjoy snowboarding. It's the only sport that I have truly enjoyed and would choose to do regularly on my own accord. However, I live in the Great Plains. Story 142. Professional nature photographer. I don't know how to use my Sony a6000 beyond the automatic modes. I have a great eye for capturing beautiful photographs, and I really enjoy being in nature and traveling. Taking pictures with my camera is my favorite activity on vacation. Story 143. Karate. I never finished my black belt. If I rejoined, I would be practicing and sparring with a group of 12-year-old kids. Story 144. Tuj downhill drift racing, inspired by Initial D. I would love to learn how to drive a car like that, but there are many factors limiting me. Story 145. I don't use drugs, never have, and have no interest in starting. That said, I am very interested in growing marijuana. I've read and heard a lot about the process, including growing different strains. The thought of doing it and possibly making money along the way is appealing. I'd never pursue it. Story 146. I felt the same way. Then I saw a 1978 Pontiac Firebird at an affordable price and thought, why not? Everything is on YouTube and there's less electronics to worry about. So far, the only problem has been time. If you have time, I say go for it. I just got the Firebird running after it wouldn't run for 4 weeks, and it was incredibly satisfying. It's even better when you have friends who don't mind tinkering around and learning with you. Unrelated to muscle cars, I think I'll try horseback riding and sailing next. Story 147. Stained glass lead lighting. I used to dream about flying a small plane, but the cost and my eyesight are not great. I would like to get a piece of land in Australia and try to restore it by removing noxious introduced species, preferably near water, and build a place. However, I am not skilled with my hands, so I would have it built. Story 148. Likewise, restoring an old muscle car is a passion of mine. My favorite and dream car is a 1970 Dodge Charger. Building computers is another interest of mine. I enjoy drawing and doodling occasionally, although I'm not very good at it, so I don't do it as often. Story 149. Learning a foreign language can be rewarding. I studied Japanese a little in high school, but I never got far. The desire to learn resurfaced, and I bought some study guides, but they have been sitting on my counter for a few months. It requires a significant time commitment, and it's challenging to balance it with all the other activities I enjoy. However, when I reflect on how much time I spend on social media or video platforms, I realize that if I reduce that time, I could accomplish a lot more. Story 150. I don't think I ever had a dream hobby. However, there are activities I have tried that became my favorite hobbies, which I have practiced for a few decades now. Martial arts and playing the guitar are my favorites. Story 151. I have been wanting to take mixed martial arts classes such as wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and boxing for a long time, but I have never had the right work schedule or enough money. Additionally, I have experienced significant sleep issues, which have left me tired and fatigued. I have addressed the first 2 issues, and I am getting a CPAP machine in 1 to 2 weeks. Hopefully, it will be effective and I can start classes before the month ends. Story 152. Dancing. I know a lot of it is just having confidence, but I dislike feeling as though everyone is watching me, and I am not very coordinated. Story 153. Oh man, where to start? I have so many things I want to do, and just absolutely no extra income or time. Story 154. My wife has post-traumatic stress disorder, and we live next to an intersection that has expanded into a major drag racing spot for muscle cars and motorcycles nearly every day and night if weather and road conditions are favorable. I'm trying to build a large wall that incorporates a wood-burning oven to deflect the sound and light and help her feel calm, so she can enjoy being outside again and work in her garden. This would cost me almost $30,000. We need that barrier urgently now. Law enforcement does not patrol, as this road is on a county border. Story 155. I played hockey for 12 years as a child. I participated in travel hockey and spent 2 years in junior hockey. I loved the sport and was quite good, serving as captain for two of my final four teams and being an alternate on another. Now, in my late 30s, I feel apprehensive about joining a men's league. I am usually very outgoing, able to hold a conversation with anyone and enjoy it, so I cannot understand why I feel so hesitant. I miss skating. Story 156. Much like other gamers, I would love to be a successful streamer. However, switching to a PC, purchasing all the necessary equipment, and dedicating myself to 3 to 7 hours a day just playing games is intimidating and time-consuming. Story 157. I want to try mixed martial arts, but I'm not a big guy. I am 5 feet 9 inches tall and weigh 145 pounds, but I can gain more weight without any problem. I have just never been much of a fighter and am not looking to get hit hard early on. Story 158. Flipping and renting out houses. I am a bit apprehensive about taking on that much debt, but I have been considering it for a while. I am skilled in handyman work and currently own a house, although I have limited experience as a landlord. I am also in a career that I do not wish to pursue indefinitely, so I would like a hobby that generates income. At some point, I plan to rent out my current house, purchase a new one, and proceed from there. Story 159. Running marathons is such a personal goal of mine, but I have never believed in myself enough to actually train. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.